Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here. This is an important day for British Columbia. And behind me, you see leaders from the forest sector, from labor, from industry, all of us coming together both to celebrate the contributions of the forest sector to our province and to our country, and also to issue a bit of a stark warning about where we're at. Forestry built this province, built this country. There's no question but that forest workers have built our schools and our hospitals and our communities for generations. And we are profoundly grateful for the contributions of the forest sector. Today marks the beginning of an additional attack on workers, on communities, on the Canadian forest sector by President Donald Trump, an additional 10% tariff on Canadian forest products. This additional tariff means that Canadian wood has a higher tariff rate going to the United States than Russia does. I want to let that sink in, that there's a higher tariff on Canadian wood going to the United States, wood that has built American homes, provided affordable and high quality building materials for families and governments across the United States. Our friends south of the border with whom we have worked side by side, fought side by side, that we have worse market access than Russia, an international pariah who has launched a war of aggression on Ukraine. It doesn't make any sense. And this attack has serious consequences for Canadians and for British Columbians. When auto parts makers, when people who work to build those auto parts, when steel workers in Ontario, when their jobs are in trouble, when their jobs are threatened, it's treated as a national emergency, and rightly so. These are foundational industries for Ontario, for Canada. And I feel the urgency around those steel jobs as much as any Canadian. And what we're asking for today is that same respect, that same concern, that same sense of emergency is shared for the forest sector in this country. The contributions of the forest sector to the Canadian economy are massive. It provides a greater direct contribution to Canada's GDP than auto parts and steel. It provides more direct employment across the country than either of those sectors. And so with this additional threat that we are facing from the president, we know that it isn't just, another thing that Donald Trump is saying. This threat is a direct threat to the livelihood, to the existence of mills in every corner of British Columbia. And those mills provide jobs for families. They use the money they earn there to pay the rent, to pay the mortgage, and in some cases, to support entire communities. It's an existential threat that the sector is facing because of an attack by the President of the United States. It's going to drive up costs for Americans and make life more challenging for them as well. We are calling on Ottawa to stand with us, all governments together, to ensure that they're deploying the more than $1 billion they've committed to the forest sector with urgency. There is no time to wait. Jobs and mills are on the line. And we are committed to continue to work with this sector to support workers who are facing curtailment, which means that their jobs aren't there. They're being put on hold. To support mills to avoid closure, to protect communities. And we'll do that in partnership with the federal government that treats this crisis that we're facing as the emergency to the national economy that it truly is. I want to reassure everybody out there whose family, whose community depends on these forest jobs. We will stand with you in Ottawa, in Washington, and right here at home in British Columbia, we'll make sure that we're doing everything we can to fight back against this unfair attack by the President of the United States and to ensure that you, your family, and your communities are supported. We've got to move our product to markets other than the United States. We've got to diversify and ensure that our forest sector remains strong for years and generations to come. A sustainable forest economy driving prosperity in every corner of British Columbia and every corner of Canada is an achievable goal for all of us. We've got to stand together to do it. That's why I'm so proud that today we're gathering here with labor, with the workers, with the companies, with Indigenous leadership. And our goal is, with the federal government, to respond to this crisis as quickly as possible. With that, I'll turn it over to the Minister of Forests.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much, Premier, for your leadership and for being the national champion that forestry needs from coast to coast to coast. My name is Ravi Parmar. I'm the Minister of Forests. It's such an honor to be here on the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. It is unprecedented for us to be here. I want to thank Scott Lunny and the incredible team at the Steelworkers for hosting us outside of the Jack Monroe building. And again, unprecedented that we have Unifor, United Steelworkers, as well as Kofi, all of our industry partners, our contractors. Todd Chamberlain from the Interior Logging Association made the drive from Kelowna last night to be a part of this. We have the First Nations Forestry Council. We've got the value-added sector represented here. Unprecedented that we're coming together truly to deal with an unprecedented situation. As the Premier rightfully said, 45% softwood lumber duties and tariffs that are impacting our ability to be able to provide world-class wood products to the United States, to be able to build the homes that middle-class Americans are desperately needing. These duties, these tariffs, are nothing more than a tax on middle-class Americans who want nothing more than to be able to build homes, build community. This is an attack on them as much as it is an attack on Canadian workers as well. I want to thank all the leaders for taking time to be able to be here with the Premier to be able to relay to the federal government that we need them to step up. As I was making the drive here, I was thinking about Jack Monroe, a leader who went through his fair share of battles with the United States as well. I never got a chance to meet Jack Monroe, but I was chatting with one of my former colleagues, Harry Baines, former Minister of Labor, and one thing came to mind is if Jack Monroe was here, he'd say, "God damn it, Trump, come to your senses." That's the message that we are relaying, that I know Jack would have relayed if he was here. Trump, you need our trees. You need our world-class lumber products. And the actions that you have taken to declare our lumber a national security risk. As the Premier said, there are more duties and tariffs on Canadian lumber, on British Columbia wood products, than there is on Russian lumber. That is absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. On a day in which we should be celebrating forestry workers and the incredible sustainable forest sector we have here in British Columbia and throughout Canada, we are facing, as the Premier said, an existential threat. And I would add, on a day in which softwood lumber duties sit at 35% and the new tariffs sit at 10%, 45%, we are dealing with a situation where we are seeing mills in Russia fire up and mills here in British Columbia, mills from coast to coast to coast here in Canada, now be threatened with curtailments and closures. I want workers to know that we're going to have their back. We're going to fight like hell for their paychecks. We're going to work together as an industry, as a sector, as government, as First Nations, to be able to send a message to Ottawa that we need them to stand up with us for our forest sector. As the Premier said, we need them to roll out $1 billion in funding, not tomorrow, but today. We need them to do that because we can't wait. Forest sectors is on the line. Our forest sector here in Canada is on the line. Workers, their livelihoods and communities are on the line. I've had a chance to be able to visit so many forest-dependent communities. I've been on the ground for a number of years in forest sector communities, and I've been on the ground when workers lose their jobs. It is unpleasant. It is damaging to that community. And most importantly, it's damaging to those families. once again, I want to thank the workers for the incredible work they do. I want them to know that Premier Eby and our government will always have their back. I want to thank you all for being here. And I'll now turn it over to Scott Lunny from the United Steelworkers.
Thanks, Minister. As was said, I'm Scott Lunny. I'm the Western Canadian Director for the United Steelworkers. I just welcome everyone here. I'm here on behalf of the over 10,000 union loggers and mill workers that our union represents. And, quite frankly, they are worried, concerned, frustrated, angry, and really, to be frank, feeling like nobody has their back in this situation that we're in right now, and in particular with the additional tariffs put on by the United States. First of all, I want to say thank you to all the folks that are here, all the folks from industry. It's not just the union here, it's not just the government here. We've got folks from all parts of the industry, First Nations leaders, value-added producers, major producers, everyone from the tree all the way through all the products that we make, standing together on this. And I think that's important, because that's what we need to do in a situation like this, is we need to stand up and fight for our industry, for the workers, and for the communities. That was already said by the Premier and the Minister. 45% is a number, but behind that is are real people. There's paychecks, there's families, there are whole communities. Forest sector jobs are often anchor jobs in British Columbia communities. And when those jobs are lost, it's not just the immediate worker, it's their family that are impacted, it's the truckers, the retail stores, the other public sector workers in the community. And when that happens, we hollow out those communities, and it's a huge problem. And that's the threat that we're under right now. And we need to make sure that there's immediate and meaningful action. And, quite frankly, that requires not just all of us here, but it requires the federal government to support this industry. Like the Premier said, like the Minister said, we're able to come together with the federal, provincial governments and industry to support other foundational industries in other parts of this country. And we need to do that now for this sector here in British Columbia. It's great that we are doing many other things and working strategically around investments and value-added products and new and diverse markets that will help our industry be sustainable in the medium and long term. But there is a challenge right here and right now, and we need to respond to it right here and right now to make sure that people continue to get paychecks, that fiber continues to flow, and that we continue to have forest sector operations operating all throughout this province, notwithstanding tariffs and notwithstanding the market conditions that we're facing right now. And so I guess my message is, and I was going to talk about Jack Monroe, but the Minister did already. But, Jack Monroe would say, the message to everyone right now, in particular the federal government, but the provincial government and all the industry stakeholders that are here, is that we need to stick together, and we need to do whatever the hell we can to make sure that we fight for forest workers, forest companies, forest communities, so that we don't lose any jobs, don't lose any manufacturing capacity, don't lose any businesses throughout this crisis that we have with the U.S. tariffs. So again, I just want to say that, this isn't a fight about lumber. This is about people. This is about British Columbians all throughout every corner of this province, many of them that are union members in my union and Gavin's union, that have good family supporting jobs, and to be able to continue to have good family supporting jobs to support themselves, their communities, and the economy of our province. So I'm glad that we're here all standing together. I'm here for one reason, and that's to fight for the jobs of the Steelworkers members in every corner of this province. And I'm glad that everyone else is united, that we're going to continue to do that and protect the forest sector in this province. So Thank you, everyone, for being here. Again, thank you to all the stakeholders and the Premier and the Minister for being here. This is a critical battle, and we need to, as we say in the union, we need to stick together, because when we're united, we're stronger together. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Gavin, for some more comments. Thanks.
Well, I'm a bit fired up today because we've seen this industry been attacked for what seems like decades in this province. You know, when we were trying to raise the alarm bells about the crisis that we saw coming, it was already a crisis before Trump took office. The tariffs and the duties and whatever name they come up with it's an attack on our industry, it's an attack on our values, and it's an attack on our communities, and it's only been getting worse and worse and worse. And we've been saying that if you lose a facility in a community, what happens to people in communities like Prince George, like on Vancouver Island, like in the interior, when they're trying to plan out a future, when they're trying to wonder, should they continue with that apprenticeship, when they're trying to wonder, should they buy a house, should they put their kids in school, should they put down roots in that community, or should they just pick up and leave? That's the scene that's happening all across British Columbia right now. You have forestry workers that are wondering, are they going to be here tomorrow? Are they going to make a go of it? And once they decide it's over, all that knowledge, all that expertise is gone. And of course, if these mills go idle, if people get laid off, then the equipment needs to be invested in, and it needs more work. And then the task to climb out of it is even much, much higher. So forestry is in an absolute crisis. It has been for decades, and it hasn't gotten the attention it needs for decades. But we're at a breaking point right now. We're at an absolute breaking point. We're hearing all across the industry. We're hearing from unions. We're hearing from the loggers. We're hearing from everyone in Kofi. We're hearing from our First Nations friends. Everyone is in massive crisis. And this is where we're calling for our government to step up. You know, I do a lot of bargaining. And what I've seen lately on this Team Canada approach is you have 10 people on your bargaining committee. Well, usually when you're sitting across from the boss, if one or two of those people get up from the bargaining table and go out and give media interviews, you don't get very far. You have to stick together. And so we have to stick up for all workers in this country, for all industry in this country. It isn't just auto. It isn't just energy. It isn't just agriculture. And it isn't just forestry. And it isn't even just forestry in British Columbia. Our colleagues in Quebec and on the East Coast are also hurting. It's all across the country. It's everyone. It's forestry and canola. It's aerospace and energy. It's auto and manufacturing. And it's agriculture and seafood producers. We need to all stick together. And that's our message to Ottawa. Don't be trading away one industry versus another. Don't be selling out the workers in the forestry industry for workers in another province. We all need to stick together. We know that in Unifor, we have over 22 different sectors where we represent workers, and we have to stand up for each and every one of them. That's our message today. We're standing here with our elected leaders. We're standing here united in British Columbia. We need the federal government to step up and make sure that they get a deal to end not only these forestry tariffs, but tariffs for all industries and protect workers all across this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin, and thank you, everyone, for joining us here at the Jack Monroe Building. We are going to take some questions from the media. We have a few in person and on the phone lines. All members of the media will have one question and one follow-up. We're going to start here in person with Kirk Blatt from City News. Go ahead, Kirk.
Morning, Premier. Let's just begin with your latest communications with the Prime Minister about making sure that lumber is a priority in any comprehensive trade deal with the United States. And I guess a two-parter to it, just your confidence that this can be done and that the feds can step up with the support that this industry needs.
Thanks. I have some anxiety, and I think it's just born of repeated experience being in British Columbia. Because Ottawa is in Ontario, because it's beside Quebec, those provinces are often front of mind. And so my anxiety as a British Columbian, as a Western Premier, is that we have to be way more aggressive to make sure that we get our message heard. Today's announcement, this group of people who have gathered here, is what we have to do. And what we're saying is that the industry is at a tipping point. This industry that contributes so much to Canada's GDP, that provides direct employment to so many Canadians from coast to coast to coast, is facing an existential threat through tariffs that are profoundly unfair, are completely unjustified, and are hurting Americans as well. So when I see Minister Jolie say we're talking about steel, we're talking about energy, and she doesn't include forestry in that list, it tells me that we got to be more in the face of the federal government, that they don't get it yet. And until the federal government gets it and understands how significant this industry is, how important these jobs are, not just to our province, but to provinces and territories across the country, and how important it is to the federal economy, then we got to keep pushing, and we will keep pushing. This group behind me, and we're all standing shoulder to shoulder, united in delivering that message that this industry cannot and will not be forgotten. We will not let it be forgotten. We will not let the workers be forgotten, and we'll make sure that it's on the federal government's radar.
Do you have a follow-up, Kurt? Okay, Kurt does not have a follow-up.
Session, do you have the list of everyone who's behind me? I'll just run through.
Yes, I do.
Thanks. I just want to make sure you know who's with us here today. We got, just in case you wanted to talk to them individually, Kim Hackstad, President and CEO, BC Council of Forest Industries. If you put your hand up for the journalists so they know who you are. Leonard Joe, President, BC First Nations Forestry Council. Brian Harwich, BC Wood. Ted Durgasoff, President, Independent Lumber Manufacturers Association. Brian Menzies, Executive Director, Independent Wood Processors Association. And we're also joined by additional international or Independent Wood Processors Association members, Ricky and Rajan Sidhu from Cedar Line Industries, Param Jaj from Jaffa Lumber Corporation, Nate Sigurdsson from Sigurdsson Forest Products, and Todd Chamberlain, General Manager, Interior Logging Association. Also, we're joined by Paul Choi, who's our MLA that has the file specifically of Asia-Pacific trade. One of the reasons he's here is because market diversification is so important to our overall strategy here as well.
Okay, great. Next, we'll head to the phone lines, and we'll start with Colin Slark from the Prince George Citizen. Go ahead, Colin.
Thank you for taking my call, Premier. Earlier this month, someone in the forest industry here in Prince George warned that further tariffs could lead to layoffs. With the seriousness of the situation, is there anything else that the provincial government can do to assist forest industries while lobbying the federal government at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. We're concerned about 10,000 plus jobs in this province. And that means that as a province, we have to step up, and we have to also be partnered with the federal government on this, whether it's around EI support or support for mills or support for workers to do forest fire reduction and so on. So for us provincially, we've taken steps to, we've held off on collecting, it's called stumpage, but it's the charge for accessing lumber for companies so that they have breathing room, and put additional delays in setting pricing so that there's room for these companies to have some breathing room as they're grappling with these tariffs. We're preparing to launch an advertising campaign in the United States to raise awareness among legislators that Russia has preferential access to the U.S. market compared to Canada, getting that message out. We've been supporting the value-added sector, both in accessing markets overseas as well as expanding with additional equipment. And to that end, we will be opening an office in the UK, which will service the Middle East as well as North Africa and Europe and the UK in terms of building and developing market relationships and accessing those markets as well. But we need all hands on deck. This can't just be the provincial government. It can't just be the companies. It can't just be the workers. And it can't just be the federal government. We're calling on an all hands on deck approach here to really respond to the depth of the crisis that the industry is facing and that families are facing because of this attack by the president.
Do you have a follow-up, Colin?
I do. Premier, you and your fellow premiers visited Washington, D.C. earlier this year. I was wondering what, if anything, you might have done or reached out to contacts, people you met during that trip to try and address the problem directly?
Yes, one of the sort of hopeful messages we've been trying to deliver is that there is actually potential for a softwood lumber deal with the United States now in a way that we haven't seen before in a generation. There's a lot of people here today who noted this has been decades that our lumber sector has been under attack through unfair tariff action by the United States. What we have right now is an alignment that does create the potential for a win for everybody of getting an agreement to bring stability to the industry here in British Columbia and Canada, to bring affordable building materials to the United States. And here are the elements of it. We've got a bank account that has more than $8 billion in it. That's the bank account that's been collecting all the tariffs the Americans have been charging. Nobody's using that money. It's just sitting in a bank account right now. That's available to assist in growing the market for everyone, supporting producers, making sure that we're growing the share of wood for wood construction in North America so that everybody benefits. The companies that produce softwood in Canada are willing to talk about quotas and what a quota would look like. This has been a key demand of the American lobby that's been pushing for these tariffs, making sure that they have certainty in Canada and that the Americans have certainty in terms of what's coming in from Canada, and we're all able to move forward. These are two things that have not existed previously that are on the table. And the third is the president's looking for wins before his midterm elections, accessing billions of dollars to grow the sector, certainty for American producers, affordable building materials for Americans. It does seem to me that this is an opportunity for an agreement. That's why we've been pushing the feds to raise this issue at the table, to put it forward equally with other sectors, with aluminum, with steel, with energy. And we certainly hope that they're taking us up on this, because it does seem to me that there is an opportunity here for an agreement.
Thanks, Colin. Next, we'll head to Richard Zussman from Global News. Go ahead, Richard.
Premier, thanks so much for taking my question. A colleague is wondering whether you and your government supports Vancouver Police having their own training academy. I know you made a significant announcement late last week expanding the Justice Institute, but Vancouver Police are concerned about not being able to get enough officers trained to meet their issues of deployment. Do you support a specific training academy for them?
Yeah, there's a significant demand for new police officers across the province, both within the RCMP and in municipal forces. Vancouver is not unique in that respect. For our provincial responsibility, we've doubled the number of seats at our police academy here in British Columbia to train up those police officers and get them out to work. Typically, we've preferred to be able to centralize the training of police officers so we have consistent training across the province, and police officers are able to move between jurisdictions without worrying about gaps in training or differential training. It provides a lot of benefits that police officers have this shared baseline together. It also supports municipalities with reduced expenditure on training because we can provide economies of scale through the Justice Institute. We're always looking for ways to improve access to police training and improve training for police officers. We'll certainly be willing to engage with the chief on his suggestion, but our strong preference is centralized training through the JI and making sure we're responding. That's why we doubled the number of spots to respond to concerns like that raised by the Chief of Vancouver.
And Richard, do you have a follow-up for the Premier?
I do. Mayor Ken Sim has put out a statement now in reaction to your legislation last week around the Parks Board. He's concerned about some of the language used in your statement last week around the role the City of Vancouver had in conversations around First Nation land sharing. And one of the things that he says in the statement is he will not support nor will bring forward a referendum that would allow any park land to be transferred without the direct consent of Vancouver residents. Is consideration being given to the legislation to remove the caveat around Indigenous land being taken out of the City of Vancouver? And what do you say to the concerns Mayor Sim is raising now?
Yeah, this is legislation that was important for the mayor. We've done our best to bring it forward and to meet the various and sundry requests of the mayor and council, as well as the administration of the city of Vancouver. If he doesn't want that section in the bill, that's okay with me, and we'll pass. This is his bill. This is for him, and it's for his park board issue in his city. And so we'll work with the mayor to address that concern. I don't have any issue with that.
Thank you, Richard. Next, we'll head to Alec Lazenby from the Vancouver Sun. Go ahead, Alec.
Hi, Premier. On the BCGEU strike, I know there's been members of MCFD that have been impacted by that strike and are now out on strike. And I talked to one young woman who's having troubles accessing life skills grants through the ministry, as well as other support because of the strike action at this current point in time. Do you just have any response to that in terms of, maybe a former youth in care who's trying to get support through the government that she should be able to access but isn't able to at this time?
Yeah, obviously, youth who are in care are an essential service. Making sure that MCFD is delivering that essential service for kids who are struggling is vital, and that work has been continuing. Making sure that kids in crisis and their families are supported is absolutely vital. There are programs that are experiencing delays, and it's not just a grant program for an educational program that a youth might be seeking. It's student loans, it's business permits, it's getting a bottle of wine for Thanksgiving. I'm sure restaurants as well would add their names to the concern. This has been a long strike. We have made a fair offer to the workers to keep them in line with inflation, make sure that they're not falling behind, but recognizing that the province is facing considerable financial strain, and that we have to be fair to taxpayers as well. Our goal is to get an agreement at the table with the union, get everybody back to work. And it's stories like this that underline the importance of that work that we need to do with the union.
And do you have a follow-up, Alec?
Yes, Premier, you recently made some comments around decriminalization and your belief that it was a mistake to bring that forward. Do you have anything that you can expand on that, or why did you feel like that was something that you needed to say publicly?
Yeah, like I've said it a number of times, and the reality and the challenge of the toxic drug crisis is that it's required us to try a number of different approaches to the problem. We want to take down those barriers so people can access drug treatment. So they're able to get the care they need, but not at the expense of downtown cores, not at the expense of our parks, not at the expense of our schoolyards, and the safety of kids or the safety of people at bus stops. So we had to reverse course and ask the government to recriminalize the public use and possession of drugs, illicit drugs. It was necessary to do. And we're pushing ahead with involuntary care for people that can't access care because they either can't or won't ask for it, but they're causing outsized amounts of chaos in our community, as well as continuing to expand treatment beds throughout the province. This is a really hard and challenging issue. We won't always get it right, but my commitment to British Columbians is we treat it very seriously. Every life lost is one life too many. And whatever we can do to make sure that people are protected and getting the care they need and the support they need to rebuild their lives and recover from addiction, that'll remain our focus.
Thanks, Alec. And next we'll head to Rob Buffum from... Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my question. My first question, Premier, relates to softwood lumber. New Brunswick's Premier has talked about, considering retaliatory measures against the states in relation to softwood lumber, just trying to move the needle here a little bit. Trump seems to sometimes respond more to force than diplomacy. Would you consider advocating for retaliation or involving the province in some kind of retaliatory measure if we still look at 45% duties and tariffs on softwood lumber?
Well, we here in British Columbia are taking a number of steps to retaliate against the unfair attacks on Canada and British Columbia by the president. We were among the first to pull U.S. liquor off of the shelves. We have done a full review of contracts within government to ensure that we're buying from Canadian and from trusted trade partners, not from American companies. That has resulted in shifting a considerable amount of expenditure away from U.S. companies and towards Canadian and trusted trading partner companies. we will continue to do this, and we will support the federal government. We have the tools in place, and we are ready to join if the federal government is ready to deploy as part of an overall bargaining approach to ratchet up the pressure on the U.S. Our key ask in any of that is only that the unique position of Western provinces be considered in retaliatory actions. But we're all in for Team Canada. We're going to push hard. I think a bully only respects force, and that's what we're seeing here is bullying. And it's bullying of Americans that want to build their homes with good wood. And it's a bullying of Canadian families that for generations have worked with Americans to deliver that wood and ensure that they're able to build their homes of their dreams. And I am fully supportive when the Prime Minister is ready for that approach. We're all in.
And do you have a follow-up for the Premier, Mr. Buffum?
I do, thank you. It's kind of a two-parter, and it's retreading a bit of old ground here. But I'm wondering about, a week ago, Prime Minister Carney, I should say, was in at the White House, and as we talked about steel, aluminum, and energy came up as things where it looks like there's an agreement. The auto sector is something getting a lot of attention. How frustrated are you that despite all the assurances, softwood lumber seems to be lagging behind? And I guess the second part is the $1.2 billion that's been promised. Could you articulate for us some of the things you want to see the federal government do in addition to putting forward that money, tangible things you want to see them do to help people in this sector?
Yeah, thanks. So the anxiety that I have is that the Americans can't produce the aluminum that they require for inputs for industry. They can't. They are dependent on Canadian energy, and so these are our cards that we play to make sure that more vulnerable sectors aren't left behind. We have to make sure that the government is looking at the whole array of sectors as they're reaching agreements with the United States and not reaching agreements on those ones where the president recognizes that there's a huge cost to industry if they don't reach agreement with us. We've got to make sure that it's the whole array of industries, including the softwood industry. And so a side deal on aluminum is basically it's a delivering to Trump what he knows he requires and he can't get anywhere else at no additional cost. We've got to make sure that all those industries are moving together in lockstep, and that's been part of my message to the federal government. Or reach agreement on more vulnerable sectors like softwood. There are softwood delivery channels from Russia. Allow the U.S. to displace Canadian softwood with Russian softwood if we can reach a deal at the tariff table. And so it's a challenging one, but I remain hopeful. The federal government is hearing us on these things, but we're going to push hard to make sure they actually do hear us on these things. What the federal government could do out of the gate, we saw them deliver $500 million in financing for a steel mill in Ontario. We saw them deliver financing for a pulp mill in Ontario, terms to be determined. Support for major facilities like that in British Columbia that are facing closure, absolutely vital. For workers, that employment insurance, waiting periods and clawbacks and so on, that those are waived so that workers who are put on curtailment, their shifts are not available, that they don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to be able to pay the mortgage. Support to make sure that we're accessing international markets. One of the biggest costs of getting our products delivered is the cost of rail. The federal government has rail jurisdiction, working with the railway companies to reduce freight costs so we can get product to different markets, both across Canada and internationally, vitally important, and get that product to mills and overseas at a reduced cost, crucially important. There is so much we can work on with the federal government, and we're very keen to, and they've allocated $1.2 billion, but we just can't wait months for that. They have to do it right now. It is crucial that it's done right away.
Thank you very much, everyone. That concludes today's event.
Thanks, everybody.